Listen carefully. Outside the window, the snow seems softer than usual, because it doesn't crunch underfoot, but rather swallows sound. The clock on the wall ticks evenly, yet its ticking does not soothe. It reminds that time is moving toward a point where the familiar may fall apart. I will tell you about that night when the holiday ceased to be a holiday, and how in one instant familiar things gained a foreign will. The house smelled of tangerines and pine resin, but those scents drowned in another, a faint, cold aroma, as if someone had opened a window to the basement and let in the winter chill. The lights of the garlands trembled, not from wind, but from something inside the wires, something that should never have touched electricity. People laughed in the next room, their voices a background that would soon become too loud or vanish altogether. I would speak for those who were silent, and for those who never managed to say their last word. At first, it was small things. The tree, set up every year, suddenly stood not where it usually did. It was in the corner, closer to the door, as if listening. The ornaments on its branches seemed familiar, but their faces, if one could call glass balls faces, reflected not the room, but something else. Empty corridors, long shadows, distorted silhouettes that did not match what was in the room. The television turned on by itself to an old program, where the host smiled too widely and spoke words that made no sense, yet sounded like an incantation. In the kitchen, the clock stopped at 11:58 p.m., and the hands seemed to tremble, as if trying to escape the dial. Someone walked down the hallway, but when the door was opened, no one was there, only footprints on the floor leading to the wall where they ended, as if the person had dissolved into the plaster. The laughter in the living room became broken. It started and stopped, as if someone pressed a record button and rewound. Guests raised glasses, but in their eyes was not joy, but expectation. They did not notice that the kitchen clock was running again, but now minutes flowed unevenly. Sometimes 1 minute lasted an hour, sometimes 10 seconds stretched into eternity. I saw a woman walk to the window and stare outside for a long time. In the snow, beneath the street lamp, someone stood watching the house. His figure was thin, like the shadow of a wire, and he did not move. Yet it seemed he knew what was inside. The woman smiled, but her smile was not for people. It was for the one standing outside. She turned and spoke warm words that no one heard, because at that moment the sound in the room grew thinner, like a taut string. There were only a few minutes left before midnight. Time compressed like a spring. Suddenly, the lights went out, and in the darkness the garlands glowed anew, not with multicolored lights, but with cold points, like eyes. Someone rose and walked to the door, but it would not open. It was locked not from outside, but from within, as though the house itself wanted to keep those inside and those outside. A rustling was heard, like the turning of pages, though there were no books in the room. The rustling crept along the walls, as if the house itself were leafing through its rooms. People began whispering old stories, but their words were not of the past, but of what was to come. They spoke of doors that open at midnight, of mirrors where reflections linger, and of those who arrive by invitation no one ever sent. 12 chimes. The first, like a hammer striking glass, and at that moment all the garlands went dark, leaving the room in bluish gloom. The second, and the house filled with the smell of smoke, though no fire burned. The third, and someone in the corner began to cry softly, but their tears were clear as ice, leaving no trace. The fourth, fifth, and on the floor appeared prints that belonged to no shoes in the room, small, like children's fingers, yet too deep, like claws. At the sixth chime, all mirrors in the house shuddered and showed not reflections, but scenes from other houses, other nights, where people also looked into mirrors and saw not themselves. At the seventh, someone in the crowd screamed, but the sound was not human. It was the sound that bursts from the throat when something inside breaks. At the eighth, the doors opened by themselves, and through the gap seeped a cold that was not air, but the memory of winters when people lost each other. The ninth, and the kitchen clock stopped forever. The 10th, and all candles went out, though no one blew them. The 11th, and a crack appeared in the ceiling, dripping not water, but thick darkness. The 12th, and at that moment all eyes turned to the center of the room, where on the floor lay a small object no one remembered, an old, worn bell, ringing on its own. The bell rang softly, but each sound was like a step. It rang not to summon, but to remind of those who once celebrated and never came home, to remind of promises people made on New Year's Eve, recorded not in books but in the walls of houses. The bell rang, and with each toll the room grew thinner, like paper, and the people within more transparent. One of the guests, a man with graying temples, bent down and picked up the bell. His hand trembled, but not from cold. He looked at it and suddenly remembered. Once, in childhood, he lost his brother on such a night. He remembered how he promised to find him, and how that promise became an anchor. Now the promise returned, not as salvation, but as demand. The bell rang, and the house began to collect its debts. A pause hung in the room, not silence, but expectation. It seemed the house was asking, who will stay, who will leave, who will give back what they took? People looked at each other, but their eyes were empty, like windows in abandoned houses. No one could recall how they had come here. Were they invited, or had they arrived themselves, led by the habit of celebration? The man with the bell raised it to his lips and whispered a name that was not his own. The word escaped him like breath, and at that moment a shadow crawled from the crack in the ceiling. Not human, not beast, but something that knew all names. The shadow touched the bell, and its sound grew louder, as though voices of those who once rang it in hope now spoke through it. The bell fell, and its sound echoed in every corner of the house. Those who had kept promises felt something leave them, those who had hidden truth felt it return. One by one, people began to vanish, not with screams but with quiet sighs, as if carried away not by hands but by memories. The ones who remained looked at the empty places and understood. The holiday ended not because the clock struck midnight, but because the house had taken what it demanded. In the end, only the man with the bell remained. He stood in the room where the garlands lit again, but their glow was dim, like light in a cellar. He lifted the bell and heard not voices, but silence, the kind that comes after all words are spoken. He realized that now he was the keeper, and that every New Year's promise he had ever made now belonged to the house. In the morning, neighbors found the house quiet. On the table remained half-finished glasses. On the floor, footprints leading to the door and ending in the air. No one remembered who had been in the house the night before, and those who tried to recall felt memory slip away, like snow melting in the palm. The bell was gone, as if it had never existed. But sometimes, when the wind blows through the crack under the door, a faint ringing can be heard, not loud, not demanding, but a reminder. If you ever find yourself in a house where the clock ticks differently, where garlands flicker strangely, and where an old bell lies on the floor, do not pick it up. Do not call back those who are gone. Remember, some promises return not to heal, but to claim what is owed. And on New Year's night, when the world prepares to begin anew, there are places where beginning and end merge, and where celebration becomes a doorway.